Joining me live is the Australian Electoral Commission spokesperson, Evan Ekin-Smyth. Thanks so much for your time, Evan. Busy time for you, I'm sure. First of all, on these numbers, so 7.5 million people have voted already. How many more do you expect today?
We expect a record day again today. The last day of pre-polling is always the largest. So we had about 750,000 people vote at pre-poll centres yesterday. We think about that, if not bigger. Who knows, nudging up towards 800,000 today. That means it's going to be well over 5 million people who will have cast a vote at an early voting centre. Of course, you add postal votes onto that as well.
Yep, certainly half, more than half potentially. But Evan, talk to me about COVID positive voters. You've changed the rules this morning. This is a last minute rule change. Can you take us through it?
Yeah, so the regulation that we had to apply was all about when you tested positive for COVID, and it was tied to the postal voting application deadline. Postal vote applications closed halfway through the week. If you were COVID positive in the first half of the week, we were encouraging you to apply for a postal vote and sending text messages and emails through health authorities to provide that guidance. If you tested positive in the back half of the week, well, you get a telephone voting solution. However, we heard from the community a lot of people, despite those messages about applying for a postal vote, they hadn't done so, which meant that they could miss out. So we've recommended to government, and it looks like government have accepted, to change the regulation to allow people from as early as the Friday who tested positive, meaning we're covering every single Australian, those people can cast a telephone vote now as well.
So how many people do you expect will be casting that telephone vote?
It's really hard to say. I mean, our service, we've got about 5,000 operators who are delivering this telephone voting service. We expect it to be quite stretched. There are lots of people who are testing positive to COVID every single day, tens of thousands of Australians, of course. Not all of those people will need the telephone voting service, though, because some will have cast an early vote already, some will have applied for a postal vote. Some people who are testing positive are not 18 years old and not registered voters. So it's hard to know where all of that lies, but it'll be a busy service, no doubt.
Can you cast a telephone vote from now in pre-poll?
Yeah, absolutely you can. So the registration system opened as soon.
Okay, so if you have COVID and you've tested positive for COVID this week and you haven't been able to get to a pre-poll, you haven't postal voted, you could take some pressure off the system tomorrow and vote now. Would you encourage people to do that?
Yeah, we'd be encouraging people to register as soon as possible. And it's an online registration process. The second step is then the telephone call. And absolutely, the first day we expected more people to do it than did. So we'd be encouraging people to get in earlier rather than later. You might minimise your wait time.
Okay, so what's the wait time?
Hard to say. As it progresses, I mean, we think election day will be the busiest day for that service, but you could be waiting on the phone an hour, more than an hour potentially for some people.
Wow, that's worse than Qantas.
Yeah, but if you actually compare it to international democracies, it's better than most polling places in some international democracies. And this is an emergency telephone solution that isn't an easy process. So we're really hoping to do it as swiftly as possible, but please be kind to our operators because they're making the process possible for people who otherwise wouldn't be able to get their vote.
Do you concede, because of the crunch on the telephone voting system, that some people who want to vote just won't be able to?
If you're on the line at 6 p.m, just like at a polling place, if you're in the line at 6 p.m, you'll get your vote. If you get on the service, you'll get it.
Okay, so we're going to stay there till midnight if you need to?
It will do what we need to. I mean, the AEC is about enfranchising people and taking their votes. That's what we do.
All right, we've got to get into the technical details the day before election. I hope you appreciate that. Now, let me ask you about mobile voting facilities in aged care. Are you doing that?
For some. So we reached out, took health advice, and essentially we reached out to individual aged care facilities, residential care facilities, to ask them if they had the COVID safety protocols in place at their venue and the ability to have us come there. A lot did. I believe the number is over 100 facilities, but a lot didn't as well. For those ones that aren't getting a mobile voting team or haven't had one, we've been facilitating postal voting. We've had dedicated teams reaching out to provide that service.
Right. So can you give us an idea in percentage terms how many of these aged care facilities will miss out? And if they don't have these mobile voting facilities, I mean, are the elderly and infirm expected to make their way to polling booths, or what is it?
Nobody will miss out. So postal voting has been what we've been encouraging. And we've also been encouraging family members, friends, carers, if it's possible, and it is for some residents of these facilities, to take them to a pre-poll as well. So nobody will miss out. There's been a range of options available through the election period, and that's what we've been communicating directly to the centres.